A few years ago in 2022, we saw a concept version, a teaser if you will, for a Toyota GR GT3 car. Very cool shape, almost AMG GTR or Dodge Viper-ish from different angles. And now, a couple of years on, we're seeing some spy shots of a test mule for a road version of the GR Sport, or whatever it will end up being called. And of course that's part of the requirement of having the GT3 car, they have to have the road-going version as well. One of the points of conjecture that some people have got is whether or not it will be a Toyota or a Lexus. Personally, I think I would much more swing towards Toyota, because although initially it could seem like it might overshadow the Supra, I think it would actually be the opposite. It will generate more positive attention not only to the Supra, but to a future Celica as well. I think having that kind of triple tier stable, especially if they brought back an MR2 later on as well, that would be a hell of a performance lineup, almost like the 80s and 90s of Toyota coming back again, but on steroids. Whereas if you look at it the other way around, if it's a Lexus, well, yes, it will be a cool successor to the LFA, but it's probably going to be a V8, perhaps a hybrid rather than the V10. It's ironic to me, incidentally, how digital the LFA felt at the time, and yet now, because technology has advanced so quickly in the past decade or two, the LFA almost feels charming and old-fashioned in comparison to supercars these days, which is kind of strange. One thing which I really hope for this car is that the LFA effect doesn't happen, because the LFA has developed a huge following, but at the time people clearly didn't love it enough to actually buy one, because a number of LFAs ended up sticking around in dealerships for, if I recall, many years without being purchased, and now look at them. On the used market, they're worth £1 million in some cases, which is way more than they were when new. I believe it was something like a 350 grand car when the LFA came out, so basically like SLR McLaren or Carrera GT kind of territory. I do think that this car will have a couple of extra things in its favour though, compared to the LFA. For one thing, this is specifically within the realm of motorsport, whereas the LFA was sometimes used for motorsport, but it was more so the Pagani Zonda approach of making a great driver's car, and if it happens to race, that's cool, but that's not really the main purpose of it. And of course, Toyota's going to put enough development into this thing that you know it's going to be good. Even if it doesn't win, it will be one of the strongest cars, no doubt, on the grid. The second thing which I think works in its favour is it almost certainly won't be a 300 grand car, because I just don't think people will pay that kind of money for a Toyota supercar. You could also argue people are paying that kind of money for a used Supra in some cases, but to me there's a bit of a difference there. That's just a crazy inflated market on used vehicles, which is just nostalgia talking. Like I said though, I do hope, and to be honest I expect, that this will be a better seller than the LFA was, and they'll probably be able to make an actual profit on this one, whereas of course the LFA, if I recall correctly, they lost money on every car that was built. There is conjecture as far as the powertrain, probably a V8 hybrid. Kind of ironic that this will have a V8 potentially, and the top tier Ferrari has a V6 instead, which is, hey, each to their own I guess, and of course the Ferrari is quick, it's just not the kind of engine you'd expect in a top tier flagship. But to be honest, this one I'm really looking forward to. I'm really keen to see what this car can do. I think it's because I don't usually expect this from Toyota. They're not exactly known for their supercars, they're known for sports cars, rally cars, sometimes, you know, GT1 level machines like the TS020, but even then the road car stands out so much because they never do that kind of thing, so when they do, it's a very special occasion, and being Toyota, it's very well engineered, fantastically reliable, and this will doubtless be an incredible bit of kit. Another tie-in which stuff like this always makes me think of is how much of a shame it was that we never got a road-going version of the Honda HSV10 back from the Super GT days. Of course, many of you love that back in Gran Turismo 6. I found it a bit overplayed. I tended to avoid it because so many people used it. Even I would admit it would have been very cool to see a Honda rival to the LFA. Although I will admit I always found it a bit odd to kind of try and visualise what that would have looked like as a road car. It's a bit of a weird shape if you take all the wings and stuff off. This one's looking fantastic even in test form, that big wing, very AMG or Viper-ish kind of super long bonnet shape. I've always preferred front engine GTs over mid-engine supercars. I find them more predictable to drive, I like the handling, I like that smoothness and more long distance vibe to them. And of course cars like this, they've proven that you can definitely make a car competitive without being mid-engine, or at least front mid-engine instead of in the back. Ultimately we'll have to wait and see what it can do, and of course I'd love to hear your thoughts and predictions. How much do you think it will cost? How quick do you think it will be? Potentially what engines you think it could have, you know, V8, etc. And ultimately we'll have to wait until probably around 2026, 2027-ish to actually see this thing in the flesh. That's it for this bit of news, of course. I'll see you next time with more, and thanks for watching.